In today's episode of the Psych Wiser Podcast, we're going to talk about why being too nice can damage your relationships, hurt your mental health, and actually push people away. This is for anyone who's ever been called a people pleaser, a doormat, or someone who just can't say no. You know the pattern. You agree to help a friend move on your only day off. You stay late at work because your boss really needs that report. You listen to someone's problems for hours, but never share your own. You say it's fine when it's actually not fine at all. You avoid conflict at all costs, even when you're being treated unfairly. On the surface, being nice seems like a virtue. After all, we're taught from childhood to share, to be kind, to put others first. But somewhere along the way, being nice transformed from a genuine expression of care into something more complicated, a strategy for survival, acceptance, or avoiding abandonment. And the truth is that extreme niceness, the kind that comes at your own expense, isn't actually about being kind at all. It's about fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of not being enough just as you are. When you're too nice, you're not making a free choice to be generous. You're acting from a place of anxiety, trying to earn the right to exist in other people's lives. So let's talk about why this happens, and more importantly, what to do instead. Because the solution isn't to become mean or selfish, it's to develop something much more powerful, authentic kindness rooted in self-respect. Being too nice often begins as a childhood coping mechanism. Maybe you grew up in an environment where your needs weren't prioritized, where love felt conditional, or where you had to be the good one to maintain family peace. Perhaps you learned that the only way to receive attention or approval was by putting yourself last. Or maybe you saw how conflict affected your family and decided early on that keeping the peace was your responsibility. You became the mediator, the one who would bend and accommodate to make sure everyone else was comfortable. Some people pleasers grew up with unpredictable parents, maybe a parent with an addiction or explosive temper. In these homes, being hyper-aware of others' moods becomes a survival skill. You learn to scan faces for signs of danger, to anticipate needs before they were expressed, to make yourself useful so you wouldn't become a target. These adaptations made sense when you were young. They were survival strategies in situations where you had limited power. The problem is that you've carried these patterns into adult life, where they no longer serve you. Now, instead of protecting you, these patterns are causing harm. When you consistently prioritize others' needs over your own, you send yourself a powerful message that your feelings, your time, and your well-being matter less than everyone else's. And eventually, you start to believe it. This leads to resentment that you try to ignore, but that bubbles up anyway. You feel exhausted, taken for granted, invisible. You wonder why you give so much but receive so little in return. Relationships feel unbalanced, with you doing most of the emotional labor while others take the lead. The physical toll can be significant too. Chronic people pleasers often report symptoms like persistent fatigue, headaches, and disrupted sleep. Your body keeps the score when your mind tries to pretend everything's fine. But here's what's even more surprising. Being too nice doesn't actually create the connection you're hoping for. In fact, it often achieves the opposite. When you present a carefully curated version of yourself, one that's always agreeable, never has needs, and exists mainly to support others, you make genuine connection impossible. Real connection requires authenticity. It requires showing up as your full self, with boundaries, preferences, and occasionally sharp edges. When you hide these parts of yourself, you might be liked, but you won't be known. And being known is what creates intimacy. Additionally, humans are wired to value what they earn. When you give and give without requiring anything in return, you train others to see your contributions as expected rather than appreciated. Your niceness becomes invisible, just the background radiation of their lives. So what's the alternative? If being too nice is the problem, what's the solution? The answer isn't to swing to the opposite extreme and become selfish or mean. Instead, it's to replace automatic people-pleasing with something more valuable. Authentic kindness backed by healthy boundaries. Authentic kindness comes from a place of choice rather than fear. It says, I want to help you, rather than, I need you to like me. It's generous, but not self-sacrificing. And most importantly, it's honest. The first step toward this shift is to start noticing your people-pleasing patterns. Pay attention to when you automatically say, yes, when you swallow your true opinions, or when you feel that familiar anxiety about potentially disappointing someone. Just becoming aware of these moments creates space for change. Learn to recognize the difference between giving from abundance and giving from fear. When you give from abundance, you feel energized and genuinely happy to help. When you give from fear, you feel drained, resentful, and anxious about the outcome. The next step is to get comfortable with discomfort. When you've spent years avoiding conflict, setting a boundary can feel terrifying. Your heart races, your mouth goes dry, and every instinct tells you to back down. But this discomfort won't kill you. It's just a feeling of growth. Remember that the discomfort of setting a boundary is temporary, but the discomfort of violating your own needs is chronic. One feels intense but passes quickly. The other is a low-grade pain that never truly goes away. Start small. Practice saying things like, "I need to think about that," instead of an automatic yes, or "I see it differently" when you disagree, rather than nodding along. These small moments of authenticity build the muscle for bigger ones. Then, work on separating others' reactions from your self-worth. When someone is disappointed by your boundary, remind yourself that their disappointment is not your responsibility. Their feelings are valid, but so are your limits. You can care about someone deeply while still honoring your own needs. Practice tolerating other people's discomfort without rushing to fix it. When you set a boundary and someone reacts negatively, take a deep breath and remind yourself, they are allowed to have their feelings. I am allowed to have my boundaries. Another crucial step is to start identifying and voicing your actual desires. Many chronic people pleasers have spent so long focusing on others that they've lost touch with what they genuinely want. If someone asks where you'd like to eat and your mind goes blank, that's a sign you need to reconnect with your preferences. Take time to ask yourself, what do I enjoy? What energizes me? What depletes me? Getting to know yourself again is a crucial part of breaking the people-pleasing pattern. As you practice these new behaviors, something remarkable happens. The relationships that were only compatible with your people-pleasing self might fall away, and that's okay, but the relationships that remain will deepen. When people see the real you, with needs, boundaries, and authentic kindness, connection becomes possible on a whole new level, and you'll likely discover that most people respect boundaries far more than you feared. Those who truly care about you don't want you to exhaust yourself for their benefit. They want a relationship with the real you, not with your people-pleasing performance. This shift isn't easy, and it won't happen overnight. You'll make mistakes. You'll set boundaries and then panic and backtrack. You'll slip into old patterns during stress or conflict. That's normal. You're rewiring decades of conditioning, and that takes time. Remember that the goal isn't to become someone who never helps others or never compromises. The goal is to make these choices consciously, from a place of genuine desire rather than fear. True generosity is only possible when you have the capacity to say no. Otherwise, it's not a gift. It's a tax you're paying to be accepted. The truth is that authentic kindness that comes from self-respect rather than fear, is far more powerful than being too nice. It allows you to be generous without being depleted, to care deeply without losing yourself, and to form connections based on mutual respect rather than one-sided sacrifice. So if you've been called too nice your whole life, if you feel resentful but can't stop people-pleasing, know that change is possible. You don't have to abandon kindness to reclaim your power. You just need to root that kindness in authenticity and self-respect. Your needs matter. Your boundaries are valid. And the most generous thing you can offer others isn't endless accommodation. It's the opportunity to know and connect with your true self. If any part of this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in these patterns, leave a comment and share your experience. Have you struggled with being too nice? What small steps have you taken to break the pattern? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Thanks for listening to Psych Wiser. Take care of your mind, and I'll see you in the next episode.